For those of you who played Cyberpunk for any extended period of time, you'd have probably noticed that CD Projekt Red didn't do a great job of exploiting the verticality of Night City, but that all changes when you explore Eden Plaza and the surrounding areas of Charter Hill. I like to call this place the Night City of Night City because it's covered with neon lights, bustling NPCs, and there's a lot of interesting areas and places to find, including some hidden areas that the developers did not want you to see, and possible hints towards future DLC or online content. My name's Mike.
I'm V.
You're watching Deconstructing the Game. Let's get to it. According to Night City lore, Charter Hill is the North Oak antechamber, and this is where those who aspire to join the super wealthy choose to live. The typical Charter Hill resident is a mid-tier corporate employee who works long hours in the adjacent city centre. Charter Hill is a sub-district of Westbrook, and this is undoubtedly Night City's most prestigious district, and this is where the wealthiest congregate, both the 1% who can afford the opulent villas in North Oak and the corporate middle managers who aspire to join them. So this is where Charter Hill is on the map, and as you can see here, I am at one of the subway stations that isn't actually marked as a fast travel point on the map. But this catwalk is pretty interesting because it is right in the centre of Charter Hill, and if we look at the guidebook, if you own one, it actually has a marker for Charter Hill Central Metro Station. If you follow the catwalk further in, at the end there is a little cafe, but unfortunately as of yet you can't actually buy anything, but this might change in the future. If we drop down from the catwalk and go into the actual Charter Hill Central Metro Station area, we can see a number of doors that are slightly ajar, and we can pretty much see into the void. Can't open them, can't access them, but if you look down here, something weird happened, and there was a couple of red dots that appeared, and I couldn't make them appear again, but this did intrigue me, so I decided to go and explore the area further after checking all the doors to see if they were open. As you can see, all the doors around this area are locked and inaccessible, but take note at where the positions are in relation to the access points higher up, because that will come into play a little bit later. As you can see, the glass doors there have a green bar above them, which usually indicates that they are available to open, and they actually do. There's some more doors on either side that have accessibility, and you can glitch through the wall as well. Big open area down there that I think they may develop further as time goes on. If you want to look higher, you can jump on the solar panels sticking out of the wall and then jump across the balconies to some areas on top. And as you can see, there's a lot of doorways and stuff up here, and then when you finally get to the top, there's like deck chairs, there's palm trees, there's umbrellas, and there's even a swimming pool that you can explore as well. There's no water in the swimming pool yet, but there's a pool nonetheless, and a lot of this texture and detail reminds me a little bit of the casino textures and renderings that we saw in one of the glitch footage I did. So potentially this has been cut content, or it's been kind of lined up for future content. Another interesting point to make here is that all these buildings around this area have AV pads, and a lot of AV pads have vehicles on top of them, which I found quite interesting. There's doors on all these AV pads, and funnily enough, they line up with the doors at the very bottom of the building. So potentially this could be future AV access points, and as you get further away from the doors, you'll notice that keypads actually appear, but then as you get closer, the keypads disappear. That's a common theme with a lot of buildings in this game, so I'm wondering if it's just a graphical error, or if it's a potential potential hint for accessibility in the future. If you jump down from the right hand side of the central resort area, you can take a good look at the lower levels of Charter Hill. And if you recognize this building, it'll be because this is where Peralez and his wife live on top there in the penthouse. And on this building here, we have a penthouse suite which was used in one of the gigs called Until Death Do Us Part. They've only really explored the verticality in this area through missions, but as you go further on into balconies and little hidden areas of the rooftops, you'll find really nice textures and like different buildings, different seats and different areas. And this catwalk is particularly interesting because underneath on the ground level we have a bunch of red boxes that have prefab missing written on them. So I'm guessing that this area should have been populated with potential seating areas, chairs, maybe like houseplants or something. So this makes me think that they were planning to do more with this area, but decided to abandon it or come back to it later on. Again, you'll notice the doors there, they line up with the doors down below, and it's very interesting that there's vending machines up here, considering that you can't get up here conventionally without actually jumping up, and they all correspond to the correct products. So that interested me a little bit. Prefab missing extends across a wide area, and you can probably find a lot of these boxes by climbing buildings and exploring more. You can find a lot of those boxes around the area. On the lower levels of Charter Hill Central, we have all the shops like Jinguchi, the bank and stuff. All the doors are locked obviously because we know behind there is a void of nothingness, but there's a hell of a lot of detail in this area compared to the rest of Night City, and I'm thinking that they probably intended this level of detail for the entire game, but it just fell short. There's also weapons you can find. There's an extra Delamain building, or possible headquarters for Delamain, which is being guarded by the police. Possibly something to do with the mission I did, because now he's pretty much going on a rampage and wants to kill me. But as you can see, this area is peppered with vending machines. Like, I've never seen so many vending machines in an area before of Night City. And there's lots of neon lights, there's lots of detail, lots of NPCs walking about, more so than usual. Incredible detail in the lower levels of the shopping center. There's a ton of NPCs kind of sitting around eating, talking to people. They're just kind of doing their own thing. I know this place is like meant for the elite, but we don't see this kind of detail anywhere else in the game, in any of the major city centers. There's just a lot going on here. There's a lot of shops that could potentially be available in the future. There's doormen that are standing there that have no function whatsoever. The doors are locked. But one thing that caught my eye in here was all the clothes that you could purchase. They have a ton of clothes on display and the price tags are there, but when we go to actually purchase those clothes, they aren't in the shop. They're not in the inventory, and I think we can all agree that the options available to buy are pretty bland and generic. So potentially we'll get to have some sort of shopping experience like they have in Grand Theft Auto 5, where you can purchase a load of things. We've got shops and kind of food places here as well. We've got doors we can open, different places to explore. And what's interesting is this particular food and beverage vendor is almost a carbon copy of one of the food and beverage vendors on the high street further down the road. The only difference with this one is that you can't access any internal menus here. It's just pretty much a carbon copy. You can talk to NPCs, but you can't access any menus. What's interesting about the central shopping area near the Wild Blue Spa and Hotel is that it's interconnected with everything. It interconnects with the Wild Blue Hotel and Spa, interconnects with a lot of different shopping areas, and on top of the Wild Blue Hotel and Spa we have more NPCs going about, and to get on top of this roof you actually have to jump up balconies and jump down onto it, so you can't conventionally get there, but there are doors that represent elevators and stuff. There's balcony parties that's going on, there's high quality seating areas on the top of the roofs. To get to these you just pretty much have to double jump and climb your way up the balconies, but as you can see they're really well detailed areas. You wouldn't normally be able to see these areas, which is kind of strange because you'd think they'd want to keep a lot of detail on the street level, but nope, they've decided to keep all this stuff in. And actually the penthouse here is very well decorated. It's got purple neon lights, it's got an AV pad, so if you're interested to get up here, you can basically use the balconies of other buildings to get onto the AV pad of an adjacent building outside the Wild Blue Spa, and you can use the double jump legs and the in-air dodge to jump across to this AV pad here, and then you can use the catwalk to get your way onto the penthouse. Now, this penthouse is particularly interesting because it's very well detailed. It's got a lot of neon lights on there. The window reflections across the entirety of Charter Hill are a lot more refined and different than other parts of the city. So this entire area is one of my favorites because of how nicely detailed it is, and the attention to detail in this area is leaps and bounds over the attention to detail they've put in other areas of the city. Other areas are pretty bland, dull. There's not a great deal to see and do, but up here we've got hard seating areas that represent the seating areas of the casino in North Oak. We've got trees, we've got neon lights, we've got good reflections, so there's a lot of detail here that I don't want to say shouldn't be here, but doesn't need to be here for this stage of the game, especially talking about how rocky the launch was and glitches and stuff. So there's a lot of very nicely detailed stuff here that doesn't need to be at this stage of the game, but is anyway. There's no elevators or doors up here, but there is an AV pad with the stairs kind of glitching through the floor, but I'm guessing they're going to do some restructuring and remodeling here. There are different resorts and hotels around here with car parking at the bottom, or potential car parking. There's garage doors that don't open yet, but that might be coming. You might recognize this restaurant from a few gigs. We meet a few NPCs here and interactions with characters, and again, this is nicely detailed, probably because we do have those player interactions in here. But there's other areas in the town as well that have neon tunnels. They're pretty well detailed. You know, this is like what was advertised in the trailers for Cyberpunk when it was coming up for release, and everyone thought there was going to be like neon lights everywhere and very kind of Blade Runner type thing. But this is as close as it's going to get at the moment, and there's a lot of shops on the waterfront that you can't access just yet. There's more NPCs here than I've seen in a lot of other areas, which interested me. Like Eden Plaza is pretty well decorated. Potentially this could be coming as well. What struck me is that all these buildings have potential access points, and they're quite similar. So I think maybe these could be purchasable buildings or apartments for online play, or they're going to add stuff as time goes on. You can buy more apartments in the single player campaign. Depending on what you chose, I don't think you can access the Perales penthouse after the mission. You might be able to if you've sided with Elizabeth, but as it stands with me, I can't get back up there. And you also can't get back up to the penthouse for the gig until death do us part, because it won't let you up there. But I did find it interesting that 2 of the elevators are out of order, so potentially that could be access points for future apartments as well. The Wild Blue Hotel and Spa barriers are hackable as well, so you can open them, but the garage door underneath doesn't open. They have a doorman, a lot of fine details that aren't used, so this is looking good in my opinion. This is just an area that has got a lot of rat runs, a lot of accessible areas, a lot of NPCs, a lot going on that reflects what the vision was for Cyberpunk. Other areas include jewelry shops, clothes shops, high-end apartments as well. All of the doors are all locked, but there's a couple that have unpowered status as well, so you can open them, but if you scan them it will say unpowered. I've never seen this for any other door unless you're doing a certain mission and you can access them through hacking, so I've never played any missions that basically involve that particular store. and I've done all the missions, so yeah, that was interesting to me. And again, access panels or keypad panels glitching in and out when you get further and closer away to them. Either this is a graphical error or this is intended to be for future access. Potentially, maybe there's going to be a penthouse on top of this building here. There's a lot of catwalks that go from building to building, and the banks are interesting as well because the doors are ajar a little bit and there's other doors behind them, so potentially we might have bank robbery missions for online play, or further missions in the future that involve robbing banks to gain some cash. Another thing that was interesting is that there's 2 Arasaka turrets that are floating in the air, and I can only presume that this was meant to be a catwalk going across the road and to that double door there just below the monorail. But as you can see, they're just floating there. There's nothing hard under them. So I used a couple of street lamps to get up to this top part here. And again, there's NPCs walking about here that I don't want to say shouldn't be, but they're pretty useless because you can't get up here unless you climb. The doors aren't accessible, but it does look like a safe passage underneath the monorail to potentially atrium for the apartments. There's also security checkpoints for AV pads at the side and the outskirts of Charter Hill as well, which is, you know, they're nicely detailed areas. They have no function whatsoever just yet, so I'm guessing this again could be future content for us to play around with. All of the content on the channel is completely clickbait free, so if you like what you see, you can always come over to Twitch and see some of the glitches and exploration videos done live. My name's Mike.
I'm V.
You've been watching Deconstructing the Game. I'll catch you later.